Good?
Yes.
All right. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Brachas Daf Mem Zayin. Before we begin the Daf, just pointing out yesterday there was a quick question regarding Rav and Abchia. So in Psachim Daf Daled on the top, the Gemara clearly states that Rav Barachua de Rabchia u Bar Achsei. Rav was the nephew of Rabchia, both maternally and paternally, as we'll learn the Rashi, the first Rashi in Psachim Daf Daled. Iva was the father of Rav. We'll get there when we get to Psachim. So Rabchia was older. Also, we have another Gemara that Rabchia, if I'm not mistaken, Rabchia, who was the one that was also a Marbitz Torah, when he passed away before Rebbe, then if I'm not mistaken, Rebbe wanted to marry his wife, and she had very sharp words to Rebbe, she considered Rabchia Kodesh in comparison to Rebbe. Having said that, the Seder Hadoiris that was written by Yerishan, listen to what he writes. He brings one opinion that says Rav's name was actually Abba Aricha. No one disagrees with that. Abba Aricha literally means the long or the tall Abba. But he writes that he was called the long Abba because he lived for hundreds of years. His real name is Abba. And this is the Rab Abba that was the Talmud of the Rashbi that wrote the Zohar. Wow. And he eventually became the head of the yeshiva in Surah. According to that, either Rabchia was also very old, or maybe, according to that version, I don't know how that cannot argue with the Gemara, but it's just an interesting Seder Hadoiris regarding, they were definitely related. The question is, who's older than who? Okay. Daf Mem Zayin will continue to learn about etiquette of eating. Right, one of the rules we'll have now in the Gemara is Ein HaMesubin Rishoim Lechol Litoim, that no one in the group is allowed to eat or even to taste the bread ad shehitoim haboitzeya, until the one who made the bracha and broke the bread ate first. We mentioned that a few times from a Zoyar, right? That's a Tana. We'll have this now in the Gemara. We're going to learn a Gavaldike concept that Amen isn't only a response that people say to a bracha. Halachically, the word Amen is the conclusion of the bracha itself. So, for example, the one who makes a bracha on bread may not taste the bread until everyone answers Amen, because the bracha is not done with yet. And then we're going to go into various halachas regarding Amen, the pronunciation of Amen, the juxtaposing of Amen with the bracha that comes beforehand. We're going to be learning, interestingly, a lot about the definition of Am Haaretz. I want to give a suggestion, Ulai, that all of the Rebbe's Mivtzayim are, at least the Ruba are explicitly connected to the sugya. Whatever defines an Am Haaretz, there is a mitzvah, and if a person is involved in that mitzvah, they're no longer defined as a Am Haaretz. B'chal Chasidim are very hesitant to define anyone with the term of a Am Haaretz, even though it is a halachic definition. It was definitely understood as a derogatory definition. And the Baal Shem Tov was very strong in making sure that we call a fellow Jew, even if the Jew is not yet observant, a Nashim Pshutim, or something of the sort. But coming back, I'll share my link between the Mivtzayim and the definition of Am Haaretz. We're also going to have on Daf Mem Zayin a very interesting way of understanding Yisurei Derabanan, particularly when it comes to Kashrus. We're going to speak out a very important statement of the Nesivis, how he says that a Isur of Kashrus Midrabanan is only a Isur Gavra, unlike an Isur Midoiraisa of food is an Isur Chefza, as we'll explain. And we know that Alter Rebbe and Perik Ches and Tanya clearly writes otherwise, and we'll link it to a sugi we'll have on Mem Zayin. We're going to have a whole concept, a whole question of whether you can include a minor in a Zimun, even though the Mishnah seems to be saying you may not. The Gemara is going to say that if you're looking for a Zimun of 10, and you have 9 adults, you can even include a minor that's in his cradle. And that's going to lead us in B'chlal, including a minor in a minyan. Regarding even when there is a doiraisa necessity to have a minyan, and the example that we'll have on Mem Zayin Amud Beis is the Rosh, that says that the reading of Parsha Zocher is a mitzvah midah oiraisa, and that can only be done with a minyan. And can you include a minor? Maybe we'll get to the Rabbeinu Tam that says that the people that give a minor or chumash to hold in their hands is a minik shtus. But let's start where we left off. We left off on Daf Mem Zayin Amud Aleph, 11 lines from the top of the Amid. 11 lines from the top of the Amid, Omar Rav Yehuda Bereid Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas, in the name of Rav, Nishmei Rav. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Malachayim Shachol Yimudun. Ein hamasubin rishoyin le'echol klum. People that are gathered may not eat any of the bread. Ad sheyitroim habotzei, until the one who made the bracha and broke the bread ate first. So we mentioned this already a few times. It says in the Zohar that there's a certain bracha that comes to the table, but it comes dafka through the one who made the bracha and ate first. Okay. Now, Yosef Rav Safra v'Ka'amar, he had the same statement, but in a little bit of a different wording. Not ein hamesubin rishoyim le'echoil, etc. That the gathered people may not eat anything, but he had it that the gathered people may not taste anything. Litoim itmar. Now, is there a difference in this context between tasting or eating? There is not, the Gemara says. They both mean exactly the same thing. Why are they using different words? Lamay nafkemina, says the Gemara, shechayiv adam loimer b'loshen rabbi. That being that they are quoting what they heard from their teachers, you have to be meticulous in quoting b'diuk the loshen of Rabbi. The Alter Rebbe, when he said Maimonim, he was very medagdik that from the 5 people who had permission to put it down on paper, other than one of the 5, which was his son, who became later a Rebbe himself, the Mittel Rebbe, you had to mamish write down b'diuk the words of the Rav. Now there is a very important halachic toisvus here. Right, we're speaking about that you may not taste anything until the one who made the bracha tasted first. Now, is this true halachically when everyone is eating from the challah that the mevarech is sharing, or is this even true if everyone has their own bilkala? So toisvus, on top of the Amid, he brings a story from the Gemara in Pesachim. There was a person that had a doubt, what do you say for the Kiddush of Shabbos day? He didn't know. And there was an elder in the room. So what he did was he said a version of the bracha, and he wanted to see whether the elder will go and drink from the wine. The elder bent down to drink of the wine, which is a raya that his Kiddush was sufficient. But how can the elder drink of his wine if he didn't drink yet? And one of the answers Tosfos brings from the Yerushalmi, I'm just reading the 4th line from the top in Tosfos, Ubi Yerushalmi yesh, that kish yesh l'chol echad ki karei oy koisei biyadai, that if everyone has in their hand their own bread, or likewise by Kiddush their own cup which already has wine in it, yechaylam lishtais, then they are allowed to drink or eat. Afilu kaidem hamavarach. According to this sheet and the Yerushalmi, this restriction is only, like here, I know Friday night there's many people, so yeah, there are 2 big challahs, but every person has a little bilkala. And according to a halacha, it comes out according to Nigla, then even if someone is going to wait for one to make the bracha for all, there's so many people anyways, until the challah will come to them, is who knows how much time, they can break their own little challah, and there they don't have to wait even for the one who made the bracha to eat. It's only if they're shearing from that challah, or likewise by Kiddush from that wine. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. Back inside the Gemara. Shnayim mamtinim zelo ze b'ka'ara. We are continuing to learning about etiquette when it comes to eating. 2 people are eating out of the same plate, and one person has to go drink some water. He leaves. The one who is there should wait for him to return. It's derech eretz. However, shloisha, if you have 3 people eating out of the same plate, here we're speaking about eating out of the same plate, and one of the 3 goes away, so then the Braisa says, ein mamtinen. The 2 don't wait for the one. It's mamish what we learned before, right? If 3 people are eating together, so if one wants to bench, he can't stop. No, you can't make 2 people inconvenienced because of one. One should become inconvenienced because of 2. Another din. The one who makes the bracha and breaks the bread, who poishid yadei tchila, he will be the one that will begin taking the food to eat. In other words, if you have a table like we have, and there are certain communal platters that is being passed around, who is the first one that should take the serving? The one who began the meal. However, but this is purely etiquette. So if he wants to honor his father, his Rebbe, someone who's older than him, he's allowed to do it. For that person to take first from the food. In contrast to when you make a bracha on hamoitzi and there's only one challah according to everyone, even if your rabbi is by the table or someone who's older than you is on the table, you may not have them eat first. You, the Boitseya, which is the one who makes the bracha and breaks the bread, you have to eat first. Okay. Next, Gemara. Rabba bar Barchana, Hava Asik Leilvrei, he was marrying off his son. Bei Rav Shmuel bar Katina, bar Rav Katina, to the daughter, it says to the household, which means to the daughter, of Rav Shmuel bar Rav Katina. And imagine you're marrying off your son, you are about to have a meal, and you call your son and you sit down and you start to learn Torah. And he began to teach his son laws of etiquette. And Kadem v'Yosef v'Komastin le'lebrei. Before the meal, he sat his son down and they learned the following brayso. Ein haboitzeya reshoy levtsoya, that the one who's making the bracha and breaking the bread may not break the bread. Ad sheyichla amen mipi ha'oinem, until whoever is there and is answering amen, until they all answer amen. Because as we mentioned before, remember that whole sugya, whether to make the bracha when the food is already in your hand, or whether it's better to make a bracha when the food is wholesome, and we're going with that opinion. So you can only break the bread after the bracha. After the bracha doesn't only mean after you made the bracha, it means after everyone who's responding amen finishes their amen reciting. And like Rashi writes over here, 9 lines from the top of the Amid, I'm reading inside the Rashi, the af anias amen min habrachehi. You chap these words, it's part of the bracha. It's not only a response to the bracha. Gavaldik. Chavre, we're going to keep your fingers on Rashi because we'll be learning many Rashis now. Okay, back in the Gemara. Rab Chizda Amar, you don't have to have everyone ending, but mipi roi fa'oinem. If the majority of the people already concluded answering amen, you may already break the bread. Amar Rami Bar Chama, why? Why do you have to wait for the roiv? Because we say da'akate lo'kalya bracha, because the bracha itself did not conclude until amen is answered, like we quoted in Rashi the words, amen is part of the bracha. So miyutanami lo'kalya bracha, even if you only have a few people, so what? Why are they being discounted? Amalei, so he responded, Shani Oimer, because I tell you that kol ha'oina amen yoisen midai einoi elo toyim. Why is it that most people finished answering amen? How is it even possible? And some people did not. And as we'll learn in a moment, amen begins at the same time. The reader, when he finishes what he's reading, right afterwards you begin saying the amen. So why would some people finish it much later? Because they're extending the word amen very long. There is a certain cutoff point that if you're saying amen to oizgeschlept in Yiddish, it no longer is an amen. Whether you're going oh, or you're going amen, whichever letter you're emphasizing, it's no longer amen. So it doesn't counter amen. Now exactly, this is a chazal. Exactly how do you put this in seconds? We don't have this never in the Gemara. But the concept is that you have to say amen clearly, as we will learn. You can't snatch the amen. You can't make the amen abbreviated. We'll see all these dinim. But on the other hand, you cannot make it too long. It no longer is an amen. And as the Gemara continues, Tanach Ein oinen loy amen chatufa. You can't say a snatched amen. Says Rashi, 13 lines from the top of the Amid. My teacher taught me the reason why God gave us 2 hands, one for the Gemara, one for Rashi. So keep pointed in here, because that's the only reason. Because we're going to learn a lot of Rashi. So Rashi is 13 lines from the top of the Amid. Chatufa means chapt. In English, it means snatched. What's a snatched amen? Shekoiden esva aleph bechatov v'loy bepasach. Just to know that Shva and Chatov mean the same. Who knows how to spell Shva? It's a good thing to know. People think that you spell Shva, Shin, Vav, Aleph, and it's a big mistake. It's Shin, Vez, Aleph, because Shin, Vav, Aleph means false. There's nothing false about the Aleph, Vez, and the Nekudis. The Mamish Shemus of Balachim, Shva means to sit, Shin, Vez, Aleph, because the sound of Shva, it makes you sit there, right? Bereshis. Even though there are 2 types of shvas, but no matter what, it's more than no vowel at all. Now, there's there's a shva, right? And then there is a patach here means a comments. Just to know the words of Rashi. So we say, amen. Interesting. Shva is taka gevura, the letter shva, because it makes you stop. We already said that a comments means is keser. But coming back over here, a gachapta amen is that you don't say and even if you get a taich pasach as you're saying You can't do that. Keep your fingers on Ashi. Weiter next, v'loy amen ketufa. nor can you say an amen that's abbreviated. What's a abbreviated amen? So Rashi says, Shemachaset kriyas hanun. You're reading amen so quick that you did not articulate the nun, amen. Because you're in a rush. That's not good. Nor v'loy amen yisayma. You can't say an orphaned amen. There's a big machlokes for shayim what this means. Let's learn Rashi. Yisayma shalei shama habracha ella sheshama shayin amen. Amen yisayma means it's orphaned. You don't know who the parent is. You don't know who the bracha is. People are saying amen. You can't join that in the amen. Asks Rashi, how can that be? We're going to learn in Sukkah that in Alexandria there was such a large shul. No matter how strong of a voice the Baal Tefilla had, people at the end of the shul were unable to hear him. So what they did was they had a system of flags. And whenever they would lift the flag or put down the flag, everyone would know now it's time to answer Amen. So there they answered Amen without hearing the bracha. If Amen Yesoima means you don't know what bracha you're hearing, how can they answer Amen in the Beis HaKnesses in Alexandria? Answers Rashi, they knew what Amen you're up to. Right? Yizgadol v'yizkada shmei rabba, everyone knew Amen is Amen. They just couldn't hear it. Because if you are in shul and you know that's more or less where we're up to, so you know the first Amen is Shmei Rabba. The next Amen is V'karev Meshiche. The third Amen is Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba. They knew, they just didn't hear. That's not a problem. But if you don't even know what you're answering Amen for, you can't answer Amen. So Taiches Rashi Amen Yisrael. Back inside the Gemara. And the fourth, V'lo Yizrek Bracha Mipev. When you make the bracha, don't rush saying it Ke'ilu. You just want to get it out of the way. Don't throw it out of your mouth. Say the words clearly. Ben Yomer, Kol Ha'ayin Aymen Yisayma. Look at these words. Yiu Banav Yisaymim. God forbid. An orphaned Amen causes children to become orphaned. Oi. Chatufa. Chatufa, as we mentioned, the snatched. That means you said the Aleph mitashva, mitachatof. What happens? Yischatfu Yamav. One's days will be snatched. God forbid if a person says an Amen Ketufa, they don't pronounce the Nun, Yiskatfu Yamav, so then the days will be abbreviated. Oy Gewalt. Something will either go wrong in the beginning or at the end of your days, compared to this. However, V'chol Hamarach Ba'amen, whoever lengthens the Amen, Marichin Yoyamam V'shanoisov, in the opposite, it has the power, if it has the power for bad, Meruba Midasova, then you're going to have long, not only days, but you're going to have long years. Says Toisvis, like we mentioned, going back to the prior sugya, ubilvat shelo yarech yoysim midai. Yeah, you should say Amen nice and clear and long, but not too long. Says Toisvis. V'tamal afisha ein kriyas hateva ki mashma'a, because if you make a word too long, the meaning of it changes. Right? Amen means it's emes. Amen is an abbreviation of Keil Malach Neman, and so many other meanings in Amen, but it's only if the word is Amen. Anything that's too much is just as bad as too little. That's the world that we live in. We are limited beings and everything has to be in a measure. You have to get the right measure. Back in the Gemara. Rav and Shmuel have a Yosvi B'Sudasa. They were sitting together. Asa Rav Shimi Bar Chiya. Now Rav and Shmuel were only two. Two people don't make a zimun. Rav Shimi comes and Hava komis harei va'achil. He hurried his meal. Rav and Shmuel finished eating, but they didn't bench yet. So Rav Shimi felt, I'm going to quickly eat. Like this, there'll be three. Question is whether he can join their meal because Rav and Shmuel finished their meal. So Amar le Rav, so Rav tells Rav Shimi, my daitach, why are you hurrying? I understand why you're doing it. It's tarufe bahadon, you want to join with us. But it doesn't work because ana achil nolan, we are already eaten, we finished, we're not planning to eat anything else. So therefore, even though we didn't bench yet, you're eating now, it won't help. Amar le Shmuel, now Rav Shimi was quiet. Rav Shmuel was the Talmud. But Shmuel, the contemporary, right, Rav, we just mentioned whether, even if he was Abaricha, he's now the head of Surah. Shmuel was the head of Narda. They were contemporaries. So Amar le Shmuel tells Rav, no. Ilu maisuli ardilaya. Shmuel loved mushrooms. If they would bring for me mushrooms, even though I planned to bench, I would eat it. Or he knew what Rav liked. Rav liked goizlaya. Goizlaya is small pigeons. If they would bring for me, my delicacy. If they would bring delicacy to who? Look how we called them. La'abba. Now, yeah, either Abba is a Shem Kavid, or Taka Rav's name was Abba, and he called him by his name. Mi lo yachlinan, would we not eat it? We would eat it. And therefore, Shmuel was of the opinion that even if you finished your meal, you're not planning to eat, but since you didn't bench yet, And we learned a few daf ago, you didn't wash mayim achronim yet. And if they would bring up a delicacy dessert you would still eat, you're still eating. So therefore, Rab Shimi's joining and eating quickly is valid to create a mezuman. Talmidei de Rav, another story, Hava Yosef b'Sudasa, they were sitting and eating. All Rav Acha came late. Now Rav Acha was, they considered the gadol amongst their group. So Amri, the Talmidim said amongst each other, perfect. We didn't know who's going to bench. We didn't know who the greatest one is. But now, Asar Gavra Rabba, the Mivrachlan, now the great man came who's going to bench. But again, Rav Acha came after they finished eating. So Amar Lahu Rav Acha tells the Chevra, Mi Savritu the Gadol Mevarech. Doesn't make sense. In this case, the Gadol won't bench. According to Rav Acha, Iker Shebasauda Mevarech, the ones who were during the meal. No, it's even though they already accepted Shmuel's approach, that even though you finished eating, but if dessert will be brought, you're still going to have it, you're still part of the meal, but still you didn't eat together. And they felt, especially Lashita Sarav, Rav Bachlal held that they can't join. He should not be the one leading. However, V'hilchas Gadol Mevarech Afal Gavdo Asel Basoif. And again, the fact that the Gemara mentions that they were Talmidei de Rav, it's Keilu twice, we don't follow Rav, we follow more the dinim of Shmuel, even though there's normally rules that Hilchasa Kerav V'Isura, Hilchasa Kishmuel B'Mamayna. But anyways, here the Gemara is saying that we follow the Shita of Shmuel. Okay, now Chavar, let's remember the first Mishnah of the Perek, Daf Memhei. The theme of the Mishnah is clear. The examples have to be worked out. What did the Mishnah say? You need to have a minimum of 3 to make a zimun. Now, the Mishnah was of the opinion that all 3 have to have bread. We're going to see in Amid Beis that Lav Dafka, we learned yesterday, Lav Dafka, that's the case. You can have vegetables. We're going to learn today and we're going to learn tomorrow whether you all have to have bread or not. But before we get to what you need to eat, you need to have 3 people. Now, what happens if one of the 3 people ate something that's not kosher? That's more or less what the Mishnah says. They can't join. But then the Mishnah gave chidushim of examples where something was borderline or something was not good midrabanan. That was one example of demai. Nevertheless, the Mishnah says they could join. So we're going to go through all of these cases. The first case was that one of the 3 ate food that's demai. Demai means that being that during the times of Bayesheni, people that were not that knowledgeable, connected to them also being lax. They were not careful in separating all of the Trumas U'Maisros. They differentiated between that which they considered was more severe, between the other ones that are considered less severe because it has a lesser punishment, and they didn't tithe it entirely. So the Chachamim made a takana that even though they were in the minority, but it was an important minority, normally you don't follow the minority. Chazal says if the person, the owner, is an Amma Aretz, then you have to call the food demai. What is this? Was it tithed or not? And some of the tithings that some of them didn't separate, you have to separate. And if you don't do that, you may not eat that food midrabanan. So the Mishnah says, if you ate demai, you can join the zimun. Asks the Gemara, how can that be? You're not allowed to eat it. And since you may not eat that food midrabanan, you should not be allowed to join the zimun. If you remember when we learned the Mishnah, we quoted the Machlekes Rambam and Ravid. The Rambam goes even further. He says that if a person eats non-kosher, not only may they not join the zimun, and if you need to have the minimum of 3, you don't even have the quorum of 3, they don't count. Nothing is going together. If it's not holy, Kedusha makes a union. Sins never unite people. It might feel that way, but it doesn't unite people. There's no joint eating, there's no mezumen. The Rambam says you don't even make a bracha rishayna and a bracha achrayna when you eat something that's not kosher. The Ravid argues, he says, brachas you make, because you have hana, elamat, you don't make zimun. How can you make zimun if it's asr midrabanan? Let me say this right now. We have the same thing on Amid Beis. Listen to this din b'kitzur. What's the din if, God forbid, Reuven sold Shimon tray for food? Shimon did not know about it. Shimon did not pay for it yet. Shimon noch ate it, God forbid. Then Shimon discovers the food that was sold was asr midoraisa. Does Shimon have to pay Reuven? The din is that even though he cannot give back the food because he ate it, he doesn't pay Reuven. He bought food he was not given for his given treif. But if Reuven sells Shimon food that's only asr midrabanan, now Shimon discovers if the food is here and he wants to give it back, then he gives it back and he doesn't pay it. But if he ate up the food, so he cannot return the food, the din is he gives back the food. The din is he has to pay the money. He has to pay. Why? What's the difference? You sold him treif. So there's a famous sheet of the Nesivis that says, from here you'll see the difference between an Isur D'Oraisa and an Isur D'Rabbanan. An Isur D'Oraisa of food means that the food itself is not good. It's called an Isur Chefza. Whenever the Chachamim says don't eat something, the food itself is okay, it's only asur on the Gavra to eat it. Since the food itself is okay, you have to pay for it if you ate it. Now the Alter Rebbe in Perek Chestanya clearly writes otherwise. What does he write? He's writing about the life force of godliness that's in everything to make that thing exist. So you have the life force of Klippa, but you have Klippas is divided into two categories, Klippas Noig and Sholosh Klippas Hatameis. The Alter Rebbe writes that even foods that are only asur midrabanan are being recreated from the level of Klippa, that's Sholosh Klippas Hatameis. It's just as asur as the Isur D'Oraisa, which means that there is also a Isur Chefze on Isurei D'Rabbanan. This fits with our Gemara. The Gemara, because if the Nesivos would be right, the answer to the Gemara's question is, since the food itself was kosher, you can join in the Zimun. Taka, you were not allowed to eat it, midrabanan, but you ate it. But the food was okay. The Gemara is coming from the premise that the food itself is not good. And if the food itself is not good, how can you join in the Zimun? So the Gemara gives a great answer, that Demai is not an Isur Chefza. Demai is a unique Isur midrabanan. Because whenever the Chazal says you may not eat something, but they gave cases where you may eat it, that's an ayah that the thing itself, right, in the words of Chassidus, is not getting its life force from Shalosh Klippas Hatameis. If not, you would never be allowed to eat it. Oh, Kivan, the I boy mafka lahu lenichse. Since the din is that if a person is poor, even though he's not poor now, but everyone potentially can become poor. In the times of the Chazal, how would you become poor? You would give up ownership. Here in the big cities in the world today, just live there for 2 months. That's it. All your savings go. But no, since a person can, God forbid, lose his wealth, and if a person loses his wealth and he becomes an ani, so we know from a Mishnah that since Roiv, even of the Amaratzim, separated all of the tithes, and Midai Raisa, you go after the majority. The reason why we have to separate some of the tithings is because there was a big minority, but that's already a midrabanan. So since on the Doiraisa level, you're allowed to eat it, the Chachamim themselves allowed you to eat it. If that you was an ani, God forbid, the Chazilei, as we learned in the Mishnah, that an ani can eat the mai without separating some of the tithes, maybe again. Likewise, the Eshu Achsanya. Achsanya means a guest, but Achsanya means that it was a common practice that whenever troops of a king went through a country, they stopped in a city, everyone was mechuyev to take a soldier or soldiers in, to host them. And you had to feed them. So you were allowed to feed those soldiers the mai. Sai, the owner, we're speaking about Jewish soldiers. That means that I'm allowed to feed them the mai. And a Yid is allowed to eat it. Because a soldier, today would be, I think, like a yeshiva bachir, might have a din of an ani. What is he? He has nothing. He has a bed in the dorm. So they're like aniyan. So since an ani can eat the mai, and everyone potentially, God forbid, can become an ani, and the Amar Rav Huna, to make the point better, Rav Huna taught us that it says in Abraisa that Beishamai oimrim ein machilin asaniyim vesach sanya demai, which means that it's only Beishamai, and Beisilul is the one that disagrees, and Beishamai b'makim Beisilul is not even a Mishnah. So therefore, even though this person is not an ani, demai is isa gavra. That's what but the food itself is okay, which is why if someone ate the mai, he may join for the zimun. A lot more of this on Amud Beis. The next case the Mishnah gave was Ma'aser Rishon Shenat La Trumasei. So the normal say that is, first you separate, first the product has to be a finished product. Grain is finished, not only after you threshed it and you winnowed it, that means you got rid of the klipa, but you put it in a pile, you made a kri, and now you smoothed out the pile. That's the way they did it. It's called the meiruach. Meiruach, it's nigmara malachton. Now you're mechuyev to separate all of the tithes. You would give a part to the kohen. Midai Raisa, there is no limit. Even a minimum amount resolves the truma, but the Chachamim suggested the 3 shiurim for the average person 2%, a 50th. So I'm going to give a 50th separated for a kohen. That's called truma gedola. Then on what remains, I separate 10% and I give it to a Levi. The Levi then has to take from his Ma'aser Rishon and separate another 10% and also give it to the Kohen, Trumas Ma'aser. Then the owner, during the first and second year, during the fourth and fifth year of the 7-year Shemitah cycle, he separates Ma'aser Sheni from what remains, which is his, the owner's or hers, but they have to eat it in Yerushalayim. during the 3rd or the 6th year of the 7-year Shemitah cycle, that second tithing is not called Meiser Sheni, it's called Meiser Ani. It's not theirs, I have to give it to an Ani. Now, says the Gemara, if Meiser Rishon had Trumas Meiser separated from it, that means it was properly tithed by the Levi, then of course if one of the 3 ate Meiser Rishon, Shenitla Trumasai, of course he can join the Zimun. Pshita answers the Gemara, no, not Pshita. Why? Tzricha, it's needed. Ela shigdima b'shibalim. What happens if when the grain is still in the ears, you didn't thresh it? If you decided then to give the tithings to their designated recipients before the chiyuv kicked in, so first of all, you should not do it. But what happens? Shigdimoy goes on the Levi. The Levi took it when it's in the shibalim. He took exactly what's coming to him, 10%. Now what's the emes? If I would have waited until I'm the owner, you're the Levi, if I would have waited until the Meruach, before the Levi would have taken 10%, what do I need to do? I have to give 2% to the Kohen. So if the Levi took 10% before Truma Gedola was taken, so really he took a little bit too much. Because he's getting, you understand, 2% of what he took never should have been not the balabasses nor the Levis. Now the Levi has to separate Trumas Meiser. The question is, does the Levi also have to separate Truma Gedolam? And if he didn't do that, then the Levi may not eat the Meiser Rishon, even though he separated Meiser and Meiser. So the rule is like this: if the Levi took the produce after the Meruach, before the owner separated Truma Gedolah, then the Levi has to separate the proportion of what he took from it, Truma Gedolah, and Meiser and Meiser Rishon. Trumas Meiser. Meiser and Meiser. But if he took it Bishibalim, since there was no chiyuv on the owner to separate any of the tithings, here the Levi gets away with only separating Meiser and Meiser. Because since it wasn't already product, so there was no chiyuv to separate Truma Gedolah, so we don't oblige the Levi now to separate Truma Gedolah. And that's the chiddush of the Mishnah, that we say this then. And therefore it's properly tithed, and therefore he's considered he ate with the group, and he joins the Zimmer.
So he's holding a Meiser, it turns out that it's more than 10%.
Oh, a lot more. Tell it to all the rabbis. Hello, just kidding. Yeah, but the one who gets the most is the Levi. No, the donor should say, I'll give you Truma. Don't do that, guys. No, give Meiser. No, it's Meiser Mamain is not the biblical, we use the same words. And there are some who say that it's a very strong chiyuv, but it's a borrowed term. Truma has no shiur. Truma midaraisa can be 0.1%. The Chachamim said give a 40th or a 50th or a 60th. Then you give Meiser Rishon. Okay, weiter. I'm not going to mention your name, but his eyes opened up. Oh, okay, guys, good, weiter. So now, if the Levi took his Meiser Rishon when it was still in ears, and the Levi did the Trumas Meiser, v'hifrish mimenu Trumas Meiser, but v'lo hifrish mimenu Truma Gedolah. So the din is that the Levi is good to go. The Levi may eat it. And this is like Rabbi Abo taught us, Rabbi Abo, in the name of Reish Lakish, Meiser Rishon, but Shlomo, only if sheikdima b'shibalim. It's if I already had the miruach, it's already a grain, and therefore there's a chiyuv to separate Truma Gedolah. There, if the Levi took the Meiser Rishon before I separated Truma Gedolah, the Levi doesn't get away with only separating Trumas Meiser. There, the Levi also has to separate the equivalent from what he took first, 2%, then another 10%, but not over here. Patr mit Truma Gedolah. Shenamar, these are psukim that we have in Kairach. There, the Torah enumerates all of the matnas kahuna. That's after the rebellion of Kairach. So Hashem reaffirms that it's Aaron, Uvanav, and what they get. And the Torah says, "V'harimoisem mimenu," that the Levi should separate from what he receives. Trumas Hashem, Meiser min haMeiser. So the fact that the Torah says Trumas Hashem, it's already a separation. If you want to say it's 10%, the Torah could have written "V'harimoisem mimenu, Meiser min haMeiser." What's the emphasis? The emphasis here is there's only one separation that he does. Meiser min haMeiser, or martilach, v'loy Truma Gedolah, utrumas Meiser min haMeiser. So Amalei Rav Papa Abaye, if that's taka the din, Yachi Bazoi, why are we emphasizing this din based on the pasuk only if the Levi took his Meiser Rishon from the Shibalim? Afilu higdimei bikri, even what? Let's say more. It's a pasuk. Even if the balabas already made a pile and he smoothed out the pile, and the Levi took the Meiser Rishon, let's say that the Levi doesn't have to give two truma to the kohen. It says in the pasuk only once. Afilu b'kri nami. So the Amar Leah, Lecha Amar Kra, because of you, the Torah says that on Zayin Amar Beis. There's another wordings in the pasuk that does include an obligation on the Levi to separate two trumas. Mikoil Masrei Seichem Torimu. From Mikoil includes that the Levi has to separate twice, Meiser the Truma Gedoyla and Meiser Mena Meiser. Umara Isa. How do you know which one to include and which one to exclude? So the Gemara says it makes sense. Hi Idgan, when it was smooth, right? That's the last line of the Amid, the top of the pasuk. So there was a chiyuv. It makes sense that just because the Levi preempted the kohen, he shouldn't get away with getting more. That it's not his to get because there was already a chalois chiyuv. Ha v'hai. What we learned above is since the loy idgan wasn't smooth, there's no pile, there's no chiyuv. The Levi Taka shouldn't have taken it, but if he took it, he gets to keep it, and he only has to separate Meiser Mina Meiser, and not also, and first, not Truma Gedol. Next case in the Mishnah was Meiser Sheni, that if one of the three ate Meiser Sheni, or they ate Hegdish, that was properly redeemed, they are included in the Zimun. And here again, the Gemara says, Pshita, if what they're eating is kosher, of course they can join the Zimun, and just the Gemara Hachib Mayaskinan can go. When it comes to me redeeming my Meiser Sheni, or me redeeming my Hegdish, if you redeem my Meiser Sheni, if you redeem my Hegdish, you have to give the exact amount of value. But if I'm redeeming my own, the Torah says I have to add a halachic fifth, which is really what we would call a fourth. So if it has a value of $100, I have to give $125. What happens if the person didn't add the fifth yet? So here one might have argued that it's not properly redeemed. If it's not properly redeemed, like the Mishnah says later, and I eat the Meiser Sheni, God forbid, outside Yerushalayim, I cannot join the Zimun. So the Chiddush is, even though I have to separate a Chaimish, but what redeems the product is the Keren. And even though the Chaimish was not given yet, it is redeemed. And since it's redeemed, it may be consumed, it's kosher, and he may join the Zimun. The next case in the Mishnah was the Shamish that ate a Kazayas. Again, Pshita. If he ate a Kazayas, so there's two people eating, they have one waiter, the one waiter ate a Kazayas, of course you have a Zimun. Mar says, no, it's a Chiddush. Mal, the Tema Shamish Lekava. He's not permanent. He's a waiter. He's not sitting and eating. Yeah, he's eating American style. He's eating standing, walking. You might think it's not called a meal. Kamash Malan, it is considered a naf kavua for him to be allowed to join in the zimun. The next is hakuti. So the Mishnah says that the kuti is counted. Now, we have throughout the Tanoim and later in the Amoraim a question whether a kuti is considered a yid or not a yid. Obviously, our Mishnah holds that a kuti is a yid, but says the Gemara, doesn't make sense. Even if a kuti is a goy, he cannot join. Even if a kuti is a yid, but since he has the status l'chura of a am haaretz, v'loyei ela am haaretz, and we learned in Abraisa ein mizamnin al am haaretz. You may not do zimun if the minimum quorum is comprised of, even if it's only one of the three, is someone who is a halachic am haaretz, as we'll define more later. So what if he's a yid? He's like an amaretz. So the Abaya says, hold on. The kutim were not all in the status of a amaretz. Amaretz, we'll define what that means in a moment. Abaya Amar, it must be, the Mishnah is speaking about kuti chaver. Now that's a little bit of what's called a doichak answer because most kutim were not chaverim. Rava Amar, afilu teima b'kuti amaretz. However, you have to know how to define amaretz. V'hachiba amaretz that Rabbanan the pligi alei that Rameir askinan. There's a machlekes Rabbanan and Rameir how to define the amaretz, as we learned in a brayso. Eseu amaretz kol she'eino eichel chulu metara divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir has a very high standard for a chaver, and there's nothing asur for a person who's not a kohen to eat food betuma, nor to have food become tamei. However, people took upon themselves a special chumrah to make believe their food is either truma or kachim, or at least not to allow it to become tamei. Only someone who's under that undertaken chumrah is considered a chaver, and anyone else is called an amaretz. Now the chachamim disagree with that. They say an amaretz has to do with people that were ignorant and therefore lax. They were lenient wrongly in certain dinim, particularly the dinim of tithing and the dinim of tumantara. But let's go back to the dinim of tithing. He takes off the truma gedoyla because if the truma is the big isur, but he feels that the levi nish gefährlich, the meiser sheni nish gefährlich. Someone who doesn't take off all the tithing, so that makes sense. They properly take off all of the tithings. Why? Because the that which is written explicitly in the Torah, they're very machmir. Mizar Zahiri. The Amar Mar called mitzvah shechzika bakutim harbe medagdikim ba yoysen mi Yisrael. Now it fits. In other words, the case in the Mishnah is he's a kuti. He's not eating his food betaro. He's not eating his food. You can even call him an amaretz, but he could join the zimun because since he's not considered a amaretz regarding the qualification of the chachamim, on him he can join the zimun, and you can be mezam and you can eat with him. Okay. So as I mentioned in the intro, I'm making a suggestion. Let's see if this works. That the Rebbe's 10 Mevtzoyim have a lot to do with the with getting the status of Am Ha'aretz removed from every single Jew. So I'm going to go through the 10 Mevtzoyim, and you're going to see how mamish. Some of them are clear. Some of them are maybe you have to have a little bit of an insight. So that in the Seder it was the mitzvah of Neshek, of Neder Shabbos Kodesh. By the way, that's not mentioned here because we're speaking about a man joining a zimun, right? And being that the mitzvah of lighting the candles, which is a mitzvah on the house, but it's primarily on the woman, it's not shaykh to our sugya. Then we have the mitzvah of tefillin. Then the Rebbe made the mitzvah of mezuzah. Then we have Torah study, tzedakah. Then came bayis mali svarim. Then the Rebbe came up with mitzvahs kashrus. Then we have the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael, Chinuch, and Taras HaMishpacha. Now let's go through this Tanach Rabbanan. Ezeu Am Ha'aretz. Number one is Kol She'eino Koyda Krishma Arvis V'Shachris. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. Now, by the way, we did have before in the Masechta that the advantage, aside of keeping God's mitzvah, which is the beginning and the ending of everything, is that since we have to be Kovei Itam La Torah, since Kriya Shema is also part of the Torah, if a person reads Shema day and night, at least they minimally learned a little bit by day and by night. That's connected to the fourth mitzvah of Torah study. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Kol she'ein maniach tefillin. It's a tefillin. Ben Azai Omer, Kol she'ein like tzitzis bebigdoi. This is the only one that doesn't fit, and I want to give a suggestion. Kol she'ein like tzitzis bebigdoi doesn't mean that if someone doesn't wear a four-cornered garment, he's called an Am Ha'aretz. It does not mean that. It means if someone wears a four-cornered garment, but doesn't put the arba kanf, doesn't put the tzitzis on them, then he's called an Am Ha'aretz. This is not something that we're shaykh to. Our garments, our standard garments, don't have four corners. Chas v'shalom, to minimize the importance of tzitzis. Fakir, that's the whole beauty of tzitzis. I'm not even mechuyev to put on a four-cornered garment. That's one of the ways that I show God that I love His mitzvahs. But kol she'ein lo tzitzis bebigdoi, this sin people don't have today. They don't have the mitzvah, but they don't have the violation of the asay. People don't wear four-cornered garments. Rav Nassan Omer, Kol she'ein lo mezuzah v'pischai. That was the third mitzvah. Rav Nassan by Yosef Omer, Kol sheyesh lo banim, but ve'eina megadlam leTalmud Torah. Doesn't raise them to Talmud Torah. This is mitzvah of chinuch, my friends. This I can argue is the mitzvah of Taras HaMishpacha. This I can argue is the mitzvah of bayis mali svarim. Okay, Acherim Oimrim. Let's go further. Even if a person learned psukim, he learned scripture, and he learned mishnayos, but Rashi says, but he didn't learn Gemara. Many others use the meaning of shimush here as it always means. Shimush means even if you learned Gemara, but you were not connected to a Rebbe, you did not serve a tzaddik. And by the way, that's tzedakah. Mishamish, Talmid Chacham means in Gemara, it means both tzedakah, mitzvah tzedakah, and it also means being connected to a Rebbe. We need to have a living role model that lives the Torah. You can't learn everything from the books. You won't get the ruach of Yiddishkeit. Hareza Am Ha'aretz. And according to the way we teach, we covered all of them aside of Shabbos candles. Okay, Amar Afuna. Halacha ka'acherim. That the definition is that even if a person is caught of a shana, but v'lo shimish talmud chacham, Hasidim will say he's not a chassid. Harei Am Ha'aretz. Look at the irony. This is okay. So look inside the top toys. This Amar Afuna halacha ka'acherim v'ha'idna ein onu medagdekim. What are you telling me that if a person is an Am Ha'aretz on this level, you can't do zimun with them? It says Tosfos we're not medagdik, and we do sit with amaratzim and eat. And Adarabah, it's a mitzvah for us, like we mentioned. You can't recline with them. That means if people around the table are lacking something, understand that, and understand that we, b'hashgacha pratas, are interacting with them for us to be mashpia on them, that they should upgrade their observance. Not that we're the big tzaddikim, but in that area we should be the good role model. And not reclining also is like you're laying down. Don't go down to their level. Bring the people up to your level. Rami Bar Chama. Loy azmin alei de Rabban Asher bar Tachlifa. He never made zimun together with Rabban Asher. Why? Even though Rabban Asher, the Tani Sifra, he learned the Toras Kohanim, Sifri, plural, goes to the Midrash, both on Bamidbar and on the bottom. That's what's called, we call the Sifri. And the Hilchas, they learned all the Mishnahs. Mishnahs was like learning Shulchan Aruch then. But he felt he was not Mishamish a Talmud Chacham. So therefore he's an Amoritz. He never ate with him. So says the Gemara, Ki nach nafshi de Rami Bar Chama. Rami Bar Chama passed away, it appears, youngish. So Amar Rava says, Le nach nafshi de Rami Bar Chama. You know why he passed away? Because he never ate a meal together with Rabban Asher bar Tachlifa. He held himself aloof. He's an Amoritz. For that he passed away young. Answers the Gemara, Shani Rav Menashe bar Tachlifa. The Misham aluhu l'Rabbanan. He did serve a Chacham. Elama Rami Bar Chama, right, the beginning of the medium-sized line, who the loy dak abasrei, he didn't investigate properly. In other words, in our words, he was really a chassid. Sometimes one chassid says, that's called a chassid. He's not a chassid. It's not emes. Anyone connected to a rebbe is a chassid. Gewaldik. And if you'll say, he doesn't look the way I look, he doesn't do those things, he's not a chassid, that's a mistake. And therefore he really was not an Amoritz, and he was wrongly categorized as such. Lishnachnina, another version, that more than that, this can maybe go after Gimel Tammuz, that Taka Rami Rav Menashe was never Mishamish a Talmud Chacham, a living Talmud Chacham. But he was connected to the Talmidim of the Chacham. Mamish. The Shama Shemaitza Mipamayu de Rabbanan. He heard the teachings of the tzaddik from the mouth of the students, the Chachamim. And he reviewed it. Right? And the din is that even though he wasn't directly connected to the Chacham, but learning from the students of the Chacham is Kitzur b'midrabanan. It's as if he was Mishamish the Talmud Chacham. How great is that? And therefore he was not an Amoritz. And therefore, Lefi Madregas Rami Bar Chama, he made a mistake, and that's why Rava says, Gaval, that's why he passed away. 2 dots. Next is Achal, Tevel, Umaisim. So here the Mishnah begins to speak the reverse, that if a person ate foods that are taka may not be eaten, he cannot join in the zimun. And if you need to have the minimum of 3, and he's one of the 3, then you can't even make a zimun, right? Because you don't have a zimun. Tevel, of course, pshita, tevel may not be consumed. Loy, no. Sricha betevel tavel midrabanan. That's what you mentioned in Amud Aleph. What will be an example of something that's only tevel midrabanan? Heichi dami, great example. But atzitz she'eino nakuf. If you have food growing in a pot, not in the ground. So you know what the Torah says? That if in the bottom of the pot there is a hole, and we have shiurim, how large the hole for a root to be able to go out, v'chulei, then the din is that the product in the pot, if it's within a certain height off the ground, is also deriving nourishment from the ground. Like we learned before by the mushrooms, that even though it's not directly, but the moisture of the ground goes into it. But if the pot is not perforated, and you're growing a product, mido'eraisa, even though you are in the Holy Land, you don't have to tithe it. Midrabanan, you have to tithe it. And this person didn't tithe it, so it's only an Isur Midrabanan. Let's go back to this. So maybe that's the pshat. Don't say, if it's Isur Midrabanan, it's only an Isur Gavra. But since the food was kosher, you can join in the Zimun. No, it's an Isur like the Alter Rebbe writes. The food is, once the Chachamim said food may not be eaten, it becomes an Isur Chefze. Right? Good. Like Cholav Akum. Okay. My sedition, right? If the Ma'aser did not have Truma Gedoyla separated from it, Truma Ma'aser Min HaMa'aser, you would think, Ma'aser Min HaMa'aser, then the eating is not kosher and you can't join in the Zimun. Pshita. So the Gemara says, loy. Sricha kegoyin shekdima b'kri. Here was the opposite. Here the kri was ready. The Levi took Ma'aser. The Levi gave Ma'aser Min HaMa'aser. But the Levi did not give also and first Truma Gedoyla. Now it's not good. Mao the Tamek the Amalei Rav Papa La Abaye that let's use the pasuk we had on Amad Aleph to say that this is also okay. Kumash Milan, like he was answered from the words Mikoil Masrei Sechem Torimu, that comes to say that there is a time that the Levi has to give two trumais. First the Truma Gedoyla, and then the Trumas Meiser. Meiser Sheni, that was not separated, he cannot join in the Zimun. Again, Pshita, answers the Gemara Loi, Sricha Shenivdu V'loi Nivdu Kil Chasan. Here a person did redeem the Meiser Sheni, but they did not do it properly. For example, this is such a good Gemara, we're learning so many dinim together. Meiser Sheni, Kigoyin Shepadoy Al Gabi Asimon. Right? Where did they get the word Asimon in modern Hebrew? From this usage in Chazal. Asimon means any coin that's not minted. That's why today they use that. Before the cell phones, when there used to be booth phones, they used to have a asimon. It's not a minted coin. You didn't put a quarter in Israel the way you do over here.
Token.
You put on a token. The token has value. You learn from a pasuk that Ma'aser Sheni can only be redeemed on a coin that doesn't only have value because it's a precious metal. It has to be on coinage, which means a minted coin based on a pasuk and an A. There the pasuk says V'tzarto ha'kesef b'yadcha. Literally, it means that if a person lives far away from Yerushalayim and you want to redeem your Ma'aser Sheni, then you should redeem it on money and you should bind the money in your hand. That's the pshat of a tzarta. The Chazal darshan that the word tzarta comes from tzura, that the coin has to have a form, which means it has to be minted. Kesef, sheyesh, olav tzura, only that may be used. And if you didn't use it, so the Mishnah is telling you it's mamish not good. Not b'di'evet, it's not good. And therefore it's not redeemed, and therefore you may not eat it, and therefore if you ate it, you may not be part of the zimun. Likewise, hegdish, what will be a case of hegdish? That you did redeem, but it wasn't on kil chasam. So if you consecrated an item and you want to redeem it, you may not redeem it on real estate. Hegdish, shechil loy al gabe karka, but v'loy pedoy bekesev, and what's wrong with that? Real estate is l'chayda very good. Pasuk, it says in B'chuk Koisai, v'nosan ha-kesev v'kam loy. Geld is geld, and karka is nish geld. The shamish that ate less than a kazayis may not join. More says pshita. The fact that it says in the Reisha that only if he ate a kazayis he can join, doesn't that already imply that that's the line, the kazayis? So here the Gemara gives a klal that there are times that Rabbeinu HaKadosh al pipshat, for the sake of symmetry, he writes sometimes kazayis is good, and just to counter it, he spells out, right, that less than a kazayis is not good. Either the Tana Reish kazayis, Tana Sefer Pachus mikazayis. This is the pshat. There's no doubt that on other levels the Mishnah is mamish neshama. The Mishnah is like every word has so many different layers of meaning. There are many other inner meanings that for which Rebbe needed to write these words, but you have to also justify it al pi pshat, and al pi pshat, that's enough of a justification. Again, pshita, he's not a yid. So the Gemara says no, right, guys? The beginning of the first widest line. What is the Mishnah referring to? Oh, how do you convert? You have to have Mila and Tefilla. What happens if the get already did a Mila? So you would think he's a semi-Jew. So the Mishnah says no, until the Tefilla, no, a Yid is a Yid. When? Mila and Tefillah. To Amar Rab Zera, Amar Rab Yechanan, lo oilam einoy ger at sheyimoil v'yitboil. And v'kamadoli ta'aval, then completely, halachically, as a din of a nachri. Next, the Mishnah says, Nashim v'avadim uketanim, ein mizamnin aleim. We already learned in the Gemara, the whole machlokes, whether women are allowed, if they want to, make zimun amongst themselves. But here, we're going back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah is not speaking about 3 women. We're speaking about 2 men and 1 woman, or 2 men and 1 minor. And the Mishnah says that they may not join the quorum of the zimun. On that, listen to this. Omar Rabbi Yosi. Now here he amends the Masayda Sashas. We're not quoting a Tana, we're quoting an Amayra. Omar Rav Asi. Koton hamutal ba'arisa. Even if the baby is still in a cradle, 1 day old, you have 2 Yidin and the minor, that's what it's mashma, right? Mizamnin olav, he could be included if the last one missing for the quorum is a koton ba'arisa, right? Lo yigia lechinuch, he can join. How can Rav Asi say that? Or how can Rabbi Yosi say that? In our Mishnah it says, Nashim va'avadim viktanim, ein mizamnim aleim. Answers the Gemara, who Meaning Rabbi Yossi or Rav Asi, they hold like Rabbi Shua ben Levi. To Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, now guys, Rabbi Shua ben Levi cannot argue with the Mishnah, but we'll hold on a second. Af al pi sho'amru, kotan hamutal barisa ein mezamnin olav. He acknowledges the Mishnah. There's different quorums for zimun. There's 3, and then there's the next madrega when you have 10. By 3, you make a zimun, but you can mention God Almighty's name. When you have 10, you also add Hashem's name. So even though the Mishnah says that a cotton may not be included, avol oisin oisoi snif la'asara. That means if you have 9 adult Jews, and now you need a 10th to be able to add Elokeinu. Here, listen to this: a minor ba'arisa creates the minyan for 10. And like the Marsha says, this is a big theme also in Chassidus, that al kol be'asara shchinta sharia. For the al kol be'asara shchinta sharia, not connected to ein oimrim davar shebekadusha, unless you have 10 adult male Jews. That's something else. There you can only make a minyan of males. But if it's something that's connected to the al kol be'asara shchinta sharia, then a yid is a yid. Anyone who has a nefesh alikis, including a minor that's still in the crib, he's a yid. And when there's 9 and him, the shechina is sharia, and therefore you can say Elokeinu. This is not our minik, so says the Ramah, but that's going to be our sugya that we're learning. Okay, now that we're speaking about Elokeinu for a zimun, now we're jumping, Chevra, this is the sugya and shas, a real minyan in a shul. What happens if you have 9 people, and where's the center? So Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Tisha ve'eved. Eved means, my friends, not an Eved Ivri who's a bona fide Jew, it's an Eved Kanani. And normally an Eved Kanani cannot join for a minyan, but if it's 9 and an Eved mitztarfin, you have a minyan, you can say Adavar Shepikudusha. It's like the Gemara Meisvei. How can that be? The story is quoted many times, the story in the Braisa. That Maisa Rabbi Eliezer, Shenichnas Lebeis HaKnesses, he went into a shul. Now davening with the minyan, according to most, davening with the minyan is a midrabanan. Okay? Nevertheless, he went into a Beis HaKnesses, v'lei motza asara, he didn't find 10 Jews. He owned a slave. So what he did was, v'shichreir avdoi, he emancipated, he freed a slave. In order for what? Now you have a freed Evet Kanani becomes a full-fledged Yid, v'yishlim al asara. So what do we see from over there? Shichreir, he needed to free him, which means loy shichreir loy. And how can you, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, say that if you have 9 and all you need is the center, then an Eved can be mitztaref? So the Gemara says, you know what happened in that story? There were 8. And Rabbi Eliezer, by the way, owned more than 1 slave. So you need to have 9 free Jews and 1 slave. So Taka, 1 slave he didn't free, but he needed to free 1 slave. Today they needed 2. Here, when a person walks into shul, when there's 8 people, you tell the guy that walks in, that's it, you're the 10th. Now we only need the 9th. Everyone likes being the 10th. So he's saying he needed 2. So shichler chad, 1 he needed to free, and takav nothing bechad. He was yoitze by counting 1 slave in. Now the question is, how was he even allowed to do that? The hechi avid hachi, v'ha'amar Rav Yehuda, kol hameshachler avdoi, whoever frees his Evet Kanani, he's violating a positive mitzvah in the Torah, as it says in Bahar, lo'olam bohem tavoidu, forever. Now the pasuk begins, it's mamash, he's like a property, just like property goes down, is bequeathed, it should be forever. Asay, answers the Gemara, l'dvar mitzvah shiny. For a mitzvah it's okay. It says, what kind of logic is that? If you're not allowed to do it, and you did it, why isn't this a mitzvah b'aveda? Answers the Gemara, you're right, if it would have been for a personal mitzvah, you would not have been allowed to do it, but mitzvah derabim shani. Now there's an Ran that goes further. He says it's not pshat because you can argue it's one asay against another asay. If there's a mitzvah, let's say it's a mitzvah doiraisa, who says an asay is doich an asay? No, an essa is doich a loisa. That's the whole Gemara in Yavamis, not an asay. So the Ran says that God Himself limited the asay. When may you not free a slave if it's tam? But if there is a mitzvah derabim, then Hashem allows you to free the slave. Now, what question is, what's the mitzvah? So some people say the mitzvah is a minyan. Problem is that's only a mitzvah midrabanan. Nevertheless, many Rishonim say, and so what? If there's a mitzvah derabim, you're allowed to do it. This is the Rosh here. The Rosh says that story must have happened. There was Shabbos Zocher. And reading Zocher Reading Torah Barabim, you need to have a minyan. Reading Zachar is a mitzvah sasei midoiraisa. Now another just detail, to emancipate a slave, you have to write a document. So l'chayr, what happened was that he was in a place that all you had was 8 Yidden and him. In other words, he freed him Friday, when he can write a document, because he knew that tomorrow, after the birth of Hasidus, he would have thought, no, tomorrow we'll happy, he would have walked out on the street and he would have grabbed a Yid. There's always the 10th Jew that we find. But anyways, this was what he did. He freed the slave according to the Rosh because there was a positive mitzvah of reading Parsha Zachar. Let's go weiter. V'omer Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Lo'olam yashkim adam lebeis hakneses. Get to the beis hakneses early. Kedei sheyiske v'yimna. You should have the merit to be counted with amongst the first 10 im asara harishonim. Like we mentioned, al pi Kabbalah, that the 10 Yidden will personify the 10 Spheres. And you always have in every minyan, it's all the same people. You have the tall guy and the short guy and the fat guy and the skinny guy and the funny guy and the boring guy. You mamish go to every shul. It's the same ruach. It's just a different. And the first 10 dafka. Shafilu meyu boim achrav. Once you have the 10, even if 100 people come after that, kibul all of schar kulam. The first 10 get everyone's schar. Says the Gemara. What does that mean? Schar kulam salkadaitach. Does that mean that they don't get any schar? No. Ela ema nois no schar kineget kulam. That's how important. Everyone gets schar. But the first 10 gets schar equal to the schar of everyone. Amar Afuna. Let's continue with the minyan. Look at these words. If you have 9 Jews, ve'arayin, and you have the aron kodesh, mitztarfin, you got a minyan. Amar lei Rav Nachman ve'arayin gavruhu. Is the aron a man? Ella Amar Afuna. Ella means it's not here, not really a retraction. He's clarifying that Tisha nidin ka'asara, and that's why mitztarfin. I didn't mean that we count the Aron. I meant to say is that 9 people look like 10. Ever happened? You think there's 10, there's only 9? Or the opposite? So what's the Aron? So many say pshat, it's 9 people that are learning Torah. So they're interacting. The Torah, the Aron Kodesh is amongst them. Now, even technically, they have to look like 10. Now here's the question in the Gemara, how does 9 look like 10? And there's 2 opinions. One, the opposite of the other. Either when everyone is close together, so everyone is together, it looks like there's 10, or the opposite when they're all spread out. No, is it 9 is like 10 when they're learning Torah for themselves, or 9 becomes like 10 when they're doing Mivtzoyim? Some people say that that only when they're gathered do 9 look like 10. That only when they're spread out. Many years ago in yeshiva with one of your chaverim, we went to the Rebbe and one guy didn't have a ticket and he got on the plane. This is in the good old days, and they couldn't count. They gave the wording. We shouldn't do this, but I remember they couldn't get enough. You start counting and the bachar were moving around, so you get confused. Okay, not kosher, nish good. Right, Omar Rav Ami wasn't me. Okay, Omar Rav Ami. Shnayim v'Shabbos mitztarfim. Same thing. Just like 9 is like 10. Go back to Zimun. You have to have a minimum of 3. No. Even the Torah, the Gemara says it means learning Torah. Here is using Shabbos, same thing. 2 and Shabbos, you have 3. Amalei Rav Nachman v'Shabbos gavruhu. So Elo Amar Rav Ami, no. 2 Talmidei Chachamim hamechadedim zed zed, that they're sharpening each other behalacha. And when do people do this beikar? When do people learn on the table? Shabbos during the week, especially if you're a worker, you can't even bench the whole benching. That's Shabbos. That if you bring kedusha, then mitztarfin. Also remember, we learned before that you need to have 3 people because of deyos. So when 2 Yidden learn Torah, if they're sharpening each other, they have so much siyata d'shmaya that they have the deyos of 3. Kilo Hashem is helping them out. And machvei Rab Chizda motioned with his hands like me and Rab Sheshes. It means when we eat together on Shabbos, we can make a zimun. And you know what? Rab Sheshes agreed. Machvei Rab Sheshes going anov Rab Chizda. Okay, we'll stop over here. A lot more about being about 9 Yidden and you need the 10th. What could you or could you not do to have a minyan to be continued? That was Eli's turn.